president of Friends of the Library. I want to welcome you all here today. I want to give you a little history about how this event all came about. A couple of months ago, a group of Friends of the Library got together and said, you know, there's nobody putting together anything for the voters to be able to hear the voice of those running for the city council. So we decided to put together an event so that you could actually see who the candidates were and what they stood for. We did the one for the 3 that were running for position 4. We did that beautiful outside, which was a great thing to be able to do. And when it was over, we had a number of people come to us and say, can you do more? Can you do a non-threatening where people can come in and just ask questions? So we put out back in July to all of the candidates that we wanted to do more forums. And we set dates, and of course I'm retired, I set the dates for Thursday afternoons. Over half of the candidates came back to us and said, well, I work. So we went back, looked at the schedule here at the library, which if you're trying to schedule a meeting in this meeting room at the library, you better get in here months in advance. The only days that were available were Saturdays. So we sent the message back out to all the candidates that we wanted to do this. We were going to do it on 4 Saturdays. And got messages back, okay, let's do it. And then last weekend we received notice from 2 of the candidates that they would not come today. So that's why you saw in the last session Bob Peterson was up here by himself. And you're seeing Lisa up here by herself today. It's because the other candidate declined our invitation to come today. To tell you a little about Friends of the Library, as the president, my goal this year was education. And every Friends of the Library meeting that we have somebody else from some other organization in this town come and speak to us. Well, last week we had Master Gardeners, and it was the biggest group we've ever had show up. We have had Coastal Interpretive Center, we've had PAWS, we've had Harry Berquist from the genealogy group come in and talk to us. We're trying to educate ourselves on the city of Ocean Shores, and what better way to do that than to have our candidates come and speak to us in front of everybody. So I want to thank you all for coming today, for giving your time up on a Saturday to come in and hear the candidates. And this is here for you as the voters of Ocean Shores to make up your minds as to who you want to vote for. Friends of the Library is not endorsing any candidate. All 10 candidates were invited. We don't endorse anybody. We're doing this for education so you know what's going on. So with that being said, we gave Bob 10 minutes and he took 15 to introduce himself. So we're going to give Lisa 15 minutes that she can speak on whatever she wants to speak on.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I want to thank the Friends of the Library for this opportunity and for everybody for giving up one of those rare, beautiful days we have here. And in those last days of summer, and instead of being outside enjoying it, you're choosing here to come in here and just learn more about just our city and me as a candidate so that you can make the best informed decision when it comes to voting. So thank you for giving up your time. My name is Lisa Griebel, and some of you I've met before, maybe at meet and greets, or maybe I met you when I last ran for city council. So I want to apologize in advance if you're rehearing the Lisa Griebel story for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th time. I love that people are taking notes, right? I actually want to go get my picture and my camera and take a picture of people taking notes and share it with my staff at school, that maybe if they took notes when I got staff, I wouldn't hear, like, you never told me that, I don't know what you're talking about. I'd be like, look, you could have taken notes. So thank you so much for modeling note-taking. I love that. But I am, as you know, an educator. I just mentioned that I work at a school. So a little bit about my journey. I call it the, how did this country girl end up on the coast? So I did grow up in Kansas, and I think I lived 27 years in Kansas. I grew up on a farm. We didn't have a lot, but because you live on a farm, you never went without. And so, grew up, we ate the food out of our garden. We had chickens, so we always had chicken and eggs. We had cattle, so we had beef. So I always had enough to eat. My grandmother and my mother made all my clothes. or I had hand-me-downs from the older siblings. So we just, we got by, and it was a great way to be raised. I went on to go to college, I want to say for the first time. I went to a agricultural college, Kansas State University, where I think my story might be a little bit similar to Caroline Emmert's. I think I was more interested in boys than anything else, so I did end up finding a husband, getting married, and basically stopped going to school. I think my mother would be surprised at what I told her I was going to school. I really wasn't going to school, but got married, had some kids, and decided what I really wanted to do with my life was to go into hotel management. I loved everything there was about working in a hotel. So I worked all the different jobs in a hotel. I started, as working in a restaurant. I was a cocktail waitress. I started working at the front desk. I worked all the shifts. I did the first shift. I did the second shift, and that's over 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night. And then I was also doing night audit, which is where you work 11 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning, and you did all the books for the hotel. And I was on a track. I'd finally gone back to college. At that point, I was at Wichita State University working on a business degree, and I was going to manage a hotel. That's what I was going to do. And I had, I would say, a pretty traumatic event happen to me. I was robbed at gunpoint one night while working at the hotel. I was tied up and gagged. They stole the money from the hotel. They stole my wedding ring, did all those things. I had to free myself and call 911. And after that, I went home and I told my husband, I said, I just think I don't want to work in the hotel business anymore. I think now that I'm going to have, we have a family, I think I need to find something safer. I think I really need to do education instead. So I changed my major, and I got a bachelor's degree in elementary education. At that point, we had moved from Kansas to the Seattle area. My first husband worked for Boeing, so he moved from the military side of Boeing to the commercial side of Boeing, which brought us out here. And my first job as a teacher, remember I chose a safer job. A student brought an automatic machine gun to school that year. So I thought, really? Did I choose a safer one? I'm not really sure. But I got my start in education. I think this year I'm starting my 32nd year in public education. I have worked as a teacher. I worked as a behavior interventionist, a school counselor, a dean of students. A dean of students is like an assistant principal, only you don't get paid as much. I worked as an assistant principal, a curriculum assistant principal, and then as a high school principal. And I did like 20-some years in the Federal Way School District, and ended my career there 7 years as the principal of Federal Way High School, which at that point was the most diverse high school in the state of Washington. It was a tough school initially, and just working with our staff made a lot of significant changes. During that time, it can be pretty stressful to be a high school principal. So my husband in the back was like, Lisa, I think we really need to start talking about retirement or some vacation property. And we had been coming out here to Ocean Shores, maybe probably like many of you. We started when the kids were little. We'd come out on day trips. I drove my little tiny Geo Metro right out onto the sand. I had no idea you weren't supposed to, take a little tiny car out to the beach. And surprised, I never got towed off the beach during that time. So we came on day trips. We started some longer weekends, and we tried different coasts up and down the coast. We tried all the way down to like Cannon Beach or Seaside, but we really settled that this was where we wanted to purchase our retirement and vacation property. So in 2010, we purchased a condo here in Ocean Shores, and then I had a significant job change. My husband likes to tell me that I didn't learn that your boss is always right. But sometimes your bosses are right. Right? And so I did have a falling out with the superintendent at that time and found myself job hunting. And I was so lucky that one, we had property here to live at, and that I was able to look for a job in this area, and I landed a job in the Aberdeen School District. And I am starting my 10th year in the Aberdeen School District. I've been a principal at Miller Junior High for 7 years, and now I am the principal at the Harbor Learning Center. When I took over the Harbor Learning Center, it was only half-time, which means it was only 3 periods a day. It had dropped to only 30 students. And I took it over, and at this point, my team we have almost 300 students that we're responsible for. We added a GED program. We expanded to, of course, it's full day again for our students all day. We added junior high, although sometimes I wonder why I added junior high. But my 7th and 8th graders are there. And we also are taking care of our online. We have students that are still online, even after COVID, are choosing to work from home. We also have a teen parenting program. So we support any teens in our area that are teen parents. We have their children are able to have free daycare, and we have a class that supports them. And I'm also the principal of the Grace Harbor Detention Center. So the youth in Grace Harbor who are probably the most at risk that have ended up either at day school out of the detention center or unfortunately are incarcerated out there. When I first moved here, we lived in the condo, and one of our friends there in the condominium was Wilma Spike. So raise your hand if anyone ever encountered, I've used the word encountered. Wilma Spike. Long-term resident here, and she had a mission that everybody that lived in Ocean Shores should give back to the community. And as soon as we moved her full-time, she was she's like, Lisa, you need to get involved. And I was like, it was a busy high school principal. I didn't really have a lot of experience with community service, and she said, you have to get involved. So, of course, I joined her one mission, which was Workathon. I helped with that and eventually got on the Workathon board. And then ended up on the library board here and loved serving on the library board. And then when an opening came on the Ocean Shores City Council, they had recently had an election. I think it was Dan Overton, perhaps, that ended up, he had a job change and could no longer fulfill his job as city council. So there was an opening. I applied and was appointed to the city council, and I think that was August of 2016. So when you get appointed, now, Ann, is that Andy or who is that? Because I'm going to take your phone away. So you might have to put it up here on my desk. I'm sure it was just your mother texting you, right? Yeah. Sure, Andy. When you're appointed to a city council seat, you don't fulfill the whole time. You have to run as soon as the next election period is. So I ran for my seat and then completed that term. So that was about, I think, 2019. And I chose not to run again. As I mentioned, I was working at Miller Junior High. We had 500 students at the time. There were 7th and 8th graders. And our community made the decision to move 6th grade to the junior high, and there were 300 of them. So we were going from a school of 500 to 800. And I really wanted to make sure, I felt like, I wanted to make sure that my focus was on making that a smooth transition for our community, and I was concerned that I wouldn't give the time needed at the city council, so I chose not to run. And it's really a good thing I didn't, because I didn't run. You know how I can see all these campaign activities going on this summer? What that summer would have been is actually, we had a whole modular building that was supposed to come to house 300 kids, and surprise, it wasn't ready. So we had 800 kids in the school built for 500. And I had to make a plan to how to house 800 children in a school for 500. So that took up a ton of my time. And then COVID happened too. So I think just serendipitously, I didn't run for office at the time. But then, as I mentioned, I no longer work at Miller Junior High. And now I'm at the Harbor Learning Center. I love working there. But the nice thing, besides the fact that I get to choose every kid that enters our school, it's a choice school, so kids have to apply, and we do a whole, we interview them and decide whether they're a good fit for our school or not. Besides that awesome aspect, I don't have any evening activities. So I began to think about what can I do to give back to the Ocean Shores community again. And I really hadn't thought about running for city council, but when the time came in May when people were applying for seats, I I can tell you that I was disappointed. I was disappointed that not more people in our community were brave enough, like Jennifer. I can see Jennifer sitting here. She's like, hey, you know what? I'm throwing my hat in the ring. You know, it's important to be involved, and I want to be a part of it. And I was disappointed that not more people had stepped forward to run. And so, in the absence of that, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to run, because I think it's really important for people to have choice. The person I'm running against has a lot of experience. But I just want to make sure that people have a choice, because I think that's important in a democracy. So I did choose to run. So I'm just looking forward to your questions today. I figure it's got to be just as easy as a staff meeting. Picture the staff meeting when I got to tell staff that a modular building wasn't coming, and we were housing 300 more kids without 10 classrooms. And we actually had to. Half of our 8th graders had to walk back and forth every period to the closest elementary school. And we ended up having to flip a coin to see which teachers had to go pack up their classrooms and move to an elementary school for kids to walk back. That was a fun staff meeting. So I think we should be able to do this and not be as bad as the questions I got from that staff meeting.
Okay.
All right, I'm ready for questions.
All right. Okay. So I would ask that you ask just one question so that we can make sure that everybody has a chance to ask questions. I mean, just your question to be one-part question. And we can ask multiple questions during the day, but have it be a one-part question and not a multi-part question. We got that? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Lisa. Connie Clifford. I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Bob. What are your 3 priorities for when you are on the city council?
I have so many priorities.
Well, but name them all.
No, I'm not. I'm going to try to narrow it down to 3, right? Because we don't have all day. I'll try to do 3. I think one of the things is I was really proud of our work on the council before, where we developed budgeting principles. And I think they've been a real touchstone for the council when they try to make very important decisions with our people's money. And I think it's time that we develop some environmental principles. So that's one of the reasons why I had a water bottle up here. It was a plastic one. I went and put it in the back because I thought it seemed kind of hypocritical to talk about the environment with my giant plastic water bottle. But we're a new city, 50 years old plus a couple, and we're just a sand spitting out into the Pacific Ocean. And I really like our city to be here for years and years and years to come. I grew up on a farm. I think that we're generation number 6. It's been there forever, and I want our city to be here for a long, long time. And I think to do that, we really need to develop as a city some environmental principles, some touchstones, that when we make decisions in our community, are we doing it not just for the people that live here now, but are we making decisions that will impact the people that want to live here for years to come? So I'd say environmental principles. I would say infrastructure, which is a big fancy word, but if you break it down, I think pieces of that will be sidewalks. I'm hoping we'll get some questions about sidewalks today and walkability. And also things about infrastructure. I think about our streets. We bought a piece of property here where we had to pay off the lid that did all the paving, and I was on the city council when we started the street reserve fund, and we made a transportation district, but we really need to continue to think long term, how are we going to maintain our streets in this environment? And I think the third thing would be, I think kind of all encompassing, I'd say just safety and community safety, and I think under that, we need to commit to rebuilding our police station. I think having a facility for our police officers promotes all community safety and will help us attract and retain officers. And I think also in lieu of that, I think about most cities have moved to what they call a police advisory board. And when I was on the council before, I had talked about that and didn't get a lot of traction for that, but I think that when you have a police advisory board and an opportunity for the people in our community to serve and interact and be liaisons with our police department, that I think that improves communication with our police department and community safety overall. So So I think those would be three.
Another question?
I got a simple one for you. At first, you're going to be really disappointed.
Oh, I was ready for the sidewalk one.
Nobody else asked last. Get next one. Camping lots. Would you vote to extend your 120 days? Oh.
I was hoping nobody was going to ask that. You know, I am not a politician, right? And I think my dad would tell you, if he was still alive, would tell you that too. You know, the politically correct response is we should just do an advisory vote, and then we'll go with whatever everybody wants. But that's the easy way out, I think, to send it to a vote. I think that our council needs to really look at it. Camping has changed. RVs have changed. It's not the same as it was when the city first started 50 years ago, when people were camping in tents. And with the equipment people use now, I think that it's appropriate to look at extending it for longer periods of time. And I think that when people come and stay for longer periods of time, it's that what other impacts are they having though? So the pros and the cons. They're going to be spending more money down here. They're going to feel more like they're a part of our community. Maybe they'll want to build or live here longer. But I think we also need to make sure if we do that, we look at what the consequences might be of that. So if you have people here longer, do we have code enforcement if people have issues? If people are leaving their campers for longer and not being here, do we have people to check on campers that are RVs that are left on property and making sure that we have the support systems that we are extending that time?
I don't see any hands up out there. Way in the back.
So Lisa, what is your ideas or your opinions on adding sidewalks?
Well, I like Jane's sidewalk question better. Yeah. So, sometimes people ask like what you're proud of when you serve on the city council. I have a whole list of that as well. But if people ask me what one of my biggest disappointments was when I served on the city council was when we did not take action on the Point Brown project and return the grant money. And I think that we have to find a way to put sidewalks not only in our downtown area, but think about walkability across the city. I live down by Marine View Drive, and I look at that big stretch that could be used to pave, maybe with safe routes to school or something, that I can use to walk and run on for parts of the year, but once the stickers grow, then I can't use that. So at the time when we returned the point, when we were working on the Point Brown project, there really wasn't community synergy to move forward. The businesses I think they wanted sidewalks, but they were concerned about parking. Most of the public comment that was coming to our council meetings was against the Point Brown project, and I think we as a council and our city staff and mayor did not do a good enough job to build community support around the project. And I think that if we want sidewalks and if we want to improve walkability, it can't just be, let's get a grant and just do it. We've got to involve the community and what it is that they want and how they want it, if we want to move forward.
The Coastal Interpretive Center, it has really expanded since it's been remodeled. It's serving not only Ocean Shore, but some of the surrounding communities. And it's funded now, I believe, partly out of LTAC funds. What are your, and the budget season is coming up, what are your thoughts on the Interpretive Center and funding
Our city budget is like one of the most important jobs that our city council does, is the whole development of the budget. It takes months and months to do. I think I tried to get a copy of the most recent one so I could try to get like up to speed, and it was 232 pages long. That's how long the city budget is. LTAC money is just, for those of you that are unfamiliar with LTAC money, it comes from the hotel tax, the taxes that we are charging people that are staying, our overnight visitors. And designed to have activities here in town that they call it putting heads in beds. What's going to increase people coming to our city. And I think the Coastal Interpretive Center, the improvements that you made are drawing more people to our city. There is a process over LTAC. I can't just say I think we should spend the LTAC money on that. There's a group that works on that with the whole process of applications. They bring it to the council and then the council approves. They're charging money though now. So I know. I dropped by with my family and then we had to go. We made a trip to the local ATM.
But become a member, it's free.
I'll put my husband on that.
Next question. Alex?
I've been listening to folks who are now running for city council and for the mayor a lot. And many of them make a point about how important transparency and getting the input from citizens is. In fact, often they will say, I will decide on this, I'll put it out to a city meeting or something like that. Yet, we're having these meetings where we can talk with you, and we have had Susan, Tom, and TJ say they're not coming. What gives? What do you make of that?
Well, I'm going to go back to what my professional experience is as an educational leader, and the kind of leadership style I have is not what I would call a top-down leadership style. You can't accomplish anything in a school. You can't change a school culture. You can't move forward with any sort of difference in professional practices unless you have your staff and your community input and they're involved and ready to go in the decision. And I think I apply those principles to the work in our city as well. I think that transparency has improved since I was last on city council, but I think that we still have a long ways to go. And I think it's important to structure community meetings where you can get input. I'm not a fan of a traditional town hall. I think I think some people think of a town hall and they picture kind of like the movie town halls where people are standing up and shouting and people take sides. I would not be in support of a traditional town hall. I think you would need a skilled facilitator that could bring people in where they could talk together so that all voices could be heard. A lot of times people call that a chat and chew, or someone told me that they call it an ABC kind of meeting, which is you do, you assess what's happening and you brainstorm some ideas and then you start to collaborate to solve the problem. But we need more community input, but you need to do it in a way that's safe, that people feel safe hearing their voices heard. And you can also add, thanks to COVID, one of the good things that happened out of COVID is that there are way more technological ways to get people involved as well. They don't actually physically have to come to a meeting. There's ways people can participate in meetings either online or those kind of pieces as well. But I actually, that may not make some people happy, but I think we actually need to increase community input. I think you would see less people coming to city council meetings with concerns if we increased other ways for people to become involved.
Since we just touched on it, I don't want to say without some they're running loud until they're shut down. Talking about not showing up, there was a meet and greet right after the flag day parade that you and Bob Peterson did not show up at also. Can you elaborate on that?
There was, I think it was, Flag Day was June, well, I know Flag Day is June 14th, but the Flag Day parade, I think, was June 16th. And so I think I got notified like 2 days before the event that it was happening, and I already had company that weekend, and I made my company march in the Flag Day parade. So I already made her do that, and we walked in the parade. She held a banner, brought her dog. And at that point, she was like, we had plans for the weekend. Are we going to do what we had planned? And so I chose my friend over an opportunity to make some connections. So if I lose the election, I'm going to blame her. Well, say I could. I'm saying I'm going to blame my friend.
A lot of people have different things going on. That's why they can't attend.
Yeah. So I did the Flag Day parade with my friend, and I'm blaming her
But that was wonderful for, there were so many people there, that was just a great event.
It was super fun. I think it's the second one I've made from Washington.
Here's another one for you.
All right.
Water quality in some of the households.
So I didn't know there was a water quality issue until I decided to run for council. And then I was like, what is happening? Right? Because I've been coming to city council meetings and then I came to the water, is the city council study session. And so I'm one of those fortunate people, I don't have a problem with my water. I love my water. And I mentioned I grew up on a farm. I grew up on well water, right? We pumped it out of the ground and then we dumped it in a cement cistern full of floating leaves, and then I grew up drinking that. So the water that's coming out of my tap, I love. But I know that in particular, Jane, I know you've had some problems with the water. Here's what I noticed about that is because people like you came forward and said this is happening and this is not okay, not just for you yourself, but you said it's not just happening to me, it's happening to other people. Attention got on that issue. And from that, from your voice and what the concern you brought forward, our city has moved forward with actually coming up with a better plan for when they flush the hydrants. They actually, it's not just like let's flush it here and there, but an actual comprehensive plan of when are we going to do it and where are we going to do it. Attention made to cul-de-sacs where they were discovering that there was an issue with they needed to flush more at cul-de-sacs. They also they've been doing more testing. We'll come to your house and test. I heard that at the council study session. Please call. We'll come in. I met those water guys. Wow. They were awesome, right? The people here that work in our city. But I think that we still need to figure out that just because my water is okay doesn't mean that it's okay for other people to have issues. And I think our city needs to continue to try to resolve. I think the mineral was manganese. I don't remember correctly. I kept hearing that come up.
Manganese is, but there's also gold back there.
Yeah, and
that's been found.
And I think at one of the forums, somebody mentioned, like, I don't know if the term was water czar, or somebody, it was more than just what had happened, that maybe we need to have a comprehensive look at the water from beginning to end. So I would think that as a city council's role would be then in the budgeting session, it's doing the budget for something like that. I think people deserve to have quality water.
So Alex talked about the meeting and you answered that we need better communication. My question specifically is the city council meeting the right place to expand that communication or should a different venue be the right place to have more service and back and forth conversation?
Well, and I would say, Richard, you're one of the people in the room that has sat on, you've been in the audience of the city council meeting, and you've been, and now across, I call it the barrier, right, on the other side. And I think that city council meetings are, it's one way to take community input, but I don't think it's the best way to get community input. And we already commit to 2 meetings a month, Mondays, right? I wish that we would, every Monday night, there would be some sort of community, it couldn't be just the city council 2 meetings a month, but the other Mondays are, I would call them community meetings, where the people, it was just regularly scheduled. And I think it might have been when I was at the water quality meeting, it might have been Jennifer that was there, that meant she had to come, she couldn't make all of it because she worked, so she couldn't get there. So when you schedule study sessions before 6 o'clock, I mean, people who are working and can't try to listen to it or Zoom when they're supposed to be working, it's hard for them. Or all of a sudden, surprise, we're having a study session. There's just not enough time for people to plan that time. If you always knew when it was going to be and have that would be a regular scheduled time that they would occur and commit to it.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't agree on stuff, Richard. I wasn't taking a pot shot at you about communication, but things could be better, right?
I
Things could
never
be
for a
better.
moment thought that.
Anything else? Questions?
My name is Dana Clark.
Hi.
It's come up a couple of times. I don't know exactly what my question is. I think it's that, but what's come up is information sharing is very limited in our community. To find information even about what's going on with the city, it's like digging. I don't think people apply to be on city council because they didn't know necessarily and made of their applications. Is that a conversation that's already happening and within the city? Or you might not know because you're not on the council right now?
Correct, I am not currently on.
What would your plan be to improve outreach to the actual whole community? Because what I see happening is 12 hours before an event on Ocean Shores chat, if you remember, you'll find out about it. You can see my frustration. I get to be sarcastic about it, but it is really true. And even you had a 2-day notice for a meet and greet. Yeah.
Sometimes my staff members call me an over communicator. Right? Really, again, like you put something in a box, you sent an email, you did all these things. So I believe in over communication, and I think our city really took a step backwards when we no longer had a community newspaper. And the Ocean Observer comes out with it once a month. That's not enough. I think that our city website has information, but you'd have to remember to go to it. So I think that we'd have to figure out, is social media the way that most people like to get their information? Because there's a way because the city has a Facebook page, they could do stuff. I'm wondering if the reader board, sometimes they used to put stuff on the reader board at the convention center, so if you drove through, there's that's happening kind of thing. So I don't have a plan other than I agree, it needs to get better. Yeah, it needs to get better. I didn't have a reader board at the school I took over, so I had to first I was handwriting things and sticking outside, which doesn't really work in the winter time, so we're trying to kind of have a makeshift one that blows over every time the wind blows. But there's no such thing as too much communication.
Yeah, that's what I hear you say too. I think it's a great value to hold as a leader, that over communicating is communicating.
I get a lot of my information now I'm friends with Jane on Facebook, so that's how I get most of my stuff.
It's the dog.
She hasn't blocked me yet.
I started a website because of this. OceanShores.fun is my website. I run it, and I scour the internet for events and community events to put on there so that people have one place to go and find out about stuff. But
which one's yours? Because I want to write.
OceanShores.fun. But I can't always do that. I'm not going to. And I've limited times, so yeah. But I did it because of that frustration, and even probably 10 people in this room have heard of it, so that it's not.
But now look, everybody's doing that.
That's true. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Lisa, when you were appointed to council the first time and then elected, and in both cases, your transition was seamless. What's the secret? Well, we have council members right now that are still struggling with the budget. It seems like you walked in and just understood it.
Well, I think that maybe it's because I had budgeting experience by being a school employee, but actually, again, I've been using Richard Wills has this budgeting worksheet he printed out I've been using. I think that I'm used to walking into situations and having to figure out what's going on and not look like I don't know what's going on. So that basically, when you work with kids, if they think you don't know what's going on, you're basically, the kids are in charge. So I've learned that you need to assess the situation quickly and figure out what's going on and be in charge. So I think it's a survival skill from years of working in junior highs. As making you super good at assessing situations and getting quickly up to speed. Has anybody here ever worked in a junior high? When I took over the Harbor Learning Center, I told my boss at the time, I said, I'm not taking it over unless I can add junior high. Because I had been at Miller and I saw kids that were struggling and needed something different. So we added it, and about 5 days in, I was like, why did I add junior high? I was like, but they are just watch them now blossom. My first group is now 9th graders at my school, and just watch how successful they are. I know I make the right decision.
Nobody else is raising their hand. Go ahead, Sherry.
I'm ready, Jane.
I just want to have a conversation. You can answer all my questions for me. I brought up many times the OSMC, enforceability, legality, keeping us on the straight and narrow with that, and the outdatedness. And so what would be your plans to help them resolve the situation?
So from like a school perspective, we have what's called district policies and procedures. And when I worked in the Federal Way School District, it's a very large school district, they were, I don't want to use the word mess because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but they were in a similar situation of just the ones that were supposed to have been updated weren't updated, or maybe they only updated one, but there were several other ones that still pertained to that needed to be updated. And our school district ended up having to hire somebody full-time, and that's all they did. And it took them a year to bring all of the policies and procedures up to date. And then somebody to always, because in a school district, they constantly send out what you're supposed to be updating, so someone to actually pay attention to what they're supposed to be updating. And I think that it is going to take somebody full-time, and I think that's our city council's job in the budgeting process to say, we need to figure out who's going to do it, and we need to pay for it. Because it opens up, it's confusing, and it's, I think you mentioned legality-wise, you could try to enforce something, but if there's another code that says that you can still do that, then it creates a problem. And you got to do it. And it's going to take somebody, I think, full-time to do it.
Hi. What's your stand on affordable housing?
Affordable housing. So, some people that know my journey or my story know that I actually went through a period of time where I couldn't afford a place to live. And I had a job, right? And that I had 2 little kids. And if you've ever couch surfed with 2 kids and just relied on your friends to let you stay there, it's pretty hard. And I think that if we truly want to grow as a city, we need the people that want to work here to be able to afford to live here. And I feel like we don't have like a middle kind of level of affordable housing for people, so that I think that our businesses would finally be able to hire people, everybody that they need to work. Have you ever encountered like you want to go out to eat and then you go and they're closed because they didn't have anybody working? That I think that we need to make a commitment for whether it's through the zoning pieces of what we can allow as far as I'm trying to remember the term, where you can increase the level of multi-dwelling, so there's more than just one house, or explore, I think the term is ADUs, the auxiliary dwelling units, so that we can increase more opportunities for people to afford to live where they want to work.
So I'd like to riff on that question. The most efficient way to get more affordable housing is shared wall multifamily dwellings. One of the contractors in the city has put up several triplexes, and the comment I hear consistently is how ugly they are. I wish they weren't there. I've heard that from a number of persons. So I don't have a specific question, just your thoughts on that contractor has found an efficient way to build affordable houses, multifamily dwellings, and he says, I can't build them fast enough. As soon as I have one done, they're so if you have any thoughts, and I apologize for perhaps putting you on the hot seat with that question, but I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
But I think that it goes back to zoning, because you may have to change some of the areas where you can build places like that, because you can only build those type of places in certain areas. And so you would have to go, maybe it goes to the planning commission to look at what changes they're proposing for that. And I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder, because when I go by those, I'm always like, those are so cute. So,
That's a good answer.
Come on now, come on guys, get the questions going.
Lisa, you live on the water, and you're aware of the problems. What do you think the city can do to maintain and improve our waterways?
oh, the waterways. So when I first moved here, we lived in a condo that overlooked the jetty, and then we built, so I don't know if you know this, but when you move here, do you notice that you guys, like everybody wants to come and visit you because you live in the beach, right? And so we had 1,000 square feet, and there was, it was not an, I need more personal space. So we ended up, we're one of those lot clearers, right? We bought a tiny little lot, cleared it, and built a little place for our friends to stay in. And now we sold both of those, and we live on the water, and we live on Lake Menard. Most of the time, it's beautiful, right, on Lake Menard. But right now, in September, when we haven't had a lot of rain, it's not as pretty as it was originally. So yes, the health of our fresh waterways is an issue. These are man-made bodies of water. They aren't just natural, pristine mountain lakes that we have here. They're man-made, and we have to come up with a solution. It's going to take us to keep them healthy because we created them. And I think part of that is that we have to make sure the source of what the water's going in and can get to it. So I think the cleaning of the Oyhut ditch was so important to get waterways in, and also all the stormwater drainage that the cities work to clear out the ditches in the stormwater to make sure the water comes in. And there was like some big study, the weed study they just did about what we were going to do about the aquatic weeds and what's going on, just how bad it is. I think, again, I'm not a scientist, right, but I think the combination of if we could get the harvester working again or invest in a harvester, I don't think we're ever going to get away from some aquatic weed spraying, but that's going to be an issue. I don't ever want to use the word dredging because that brings up a whole other issue, but I think trying to figure out a way to remove that decaying biomass at the bottom would help as well. And I don't want Doug to listen because he uses weed and feed. If you are back there. Do we need to address, just as a community, it's back to those environmental principles, are what we doing in our lawns or how we're landscaping, are we impacting the health of the waterways? And do we need to address what we're doing as individuals that's contributing to the health of the waterways? But it is going to take money, and I don't think there's enough money in our city budget to pay for all these things I just said. It's going to take a commitment by our city, working with whether it's leveraging the membership in the conservation district and pursuing some grants, because it's going to take a lot to get that done. But if we don't do it, it just doesn't impact me as someone that owns water property. That it's not just going to impact me, because those waterways attract people to our community for recreation, for fishing, and that's less people that are going to want to come and do that and spend money. So it's not just impacting me, it's going to impact our whole city if we don't address it.
Okay, Alex, I was getting more hands up.
Okay, I'm going to ask the same question I asked Bob, but I love to see the kind of commitment and clarity that you do. And I want to know how I and we as a group can support you and others like you to represent us. What do the city council people need to thrive and to represent us in this system?
Well, I guess I would say that communication flows both ways, right? I'm one of those people that I want to know about an issue or a problem before it becomes a bigger problem, right? And in my professional life, I have my doors always open unless like I have to make some sort of private parent phone call, or I have some kid telling me something that I don't want anybody else to hear that story. I want people to come and let me know when something's happening. And I try really hard, I'm human, but I try really hard not to let how the message is delivered impact what the words are behind that message. People here expect our council to listen and respond to their concerns. And even if I don't agree with that person, that's how they think and how they feel, and they need to be heard. And I need that information. So what I would, as a council member, I would prefer to know what's going on before someone has to feel like they have to come to council to give the public comment to say that it's happening. I would hope that they have been able to call people and email people and get a response before they have to come and take those 3 minutes at the council meeting to tell people what's happening. So I would say communication is what I would be a successful council member. From the people back. Did you want me to know? Do I?
No, just.
Oh, that feels like what? Are you communicating with people? You've got a problem to solve. You have a problem. I do have a problem.
And I saw
Yes or no on the outside structure at Ocean Forest?
I have not been to Ocean Forest since they built the structure. I went when it first opened.
As a council member, would be
I would know. I don't know, because I don't have enough information. I don't think reading, I've read the posts on Facebook. I've cornered Richard about it. I called Lisa Scott, and everybody I talked to has I don't think I have an accurate story from beginning to end about what happened.
have you spoken to the owner?
I've not spoken to the owner. I've not. So I think I would need to hear the whole story before I could, from everybody involved, in order to say yes or no. It's kind of like when a 7th grader comes and tells me that somebody else did something, right? I just don't go, whoop, and I act on that. I have to talk to other people. Sometimes I have to review the cameras to find out what really happened, but I need the whole story in order to say yes or no. I think it's a business that, by increasing their space, has drawn more business in. When people are spending money in our city, it benefits everybody. So I think that trying to find a way to move forward with all the information would be a path that we should take if it's bringing money into our city. So as a city, we're not just the people that live here or the people that visit here. We're also hotels and businesses, and we're all interconnected. So we have to figure out a way for everybody to benefit, because we all benefit each other. However, it has to be whatever the zoning codes or the city codes are. So if there would have to be, I don't think it's okay to just say you can do that if it violates what the zoning issues are or what the code issues are. So I watched a reflective process happen at the last city council I was at. I think it was the Tesla charging stations were violating city code. And I watched a process this council went through to try to make it happen. So, and I've seen other instances of that while I was on city council, but they can't just, there's no way, I don't think, to just say it's okay and then it just moves on. That it has to comply with zoning and codes, and then what changes need to happen for that to happen.
So my question would be, would you like to see it proceed then because of the benefits it brings?
I would say it benefits our community, but it has to adhere to the rules.
Sylvia?
I guess I'm kind of late comer to this party, but I don't understand what's the deal with Ocean Forest?
I wish I knew.
What is the controversy?
It sounds like I just need to go, and except I stopped drinking in 91. So if they serve Pepsi there, I guess I could go and ask them.
They have very few non-alcoholic drinks.
Oh, then I guess I can.
No, but I mean, what is the issue?
I think you should ask Jane.
Jane, what is
Richard
the
might
issue?
answer.
Okay, is it the structure?
Richard, can you give us
No, don't have, no. You said Richard in 2 minutes. Already, that's not going to happen.
Afterwards, talk to Richard or Jake.
And then they spent a bunch of
Next
time on the
question.
engineers that would be saved.
Oh, I see. She's telling
It seems to me that the only question for a new council member on this whole ocean shores, whatever fiasco, is, are you committed to following ocean shores codes?
I think it's
While
important,
you were in
right?
office?
I think you have to follow the codes, right? I wish, if I had known I didn't have to follow codes, I'd tell, we bought our property that's on the water, we bought it as is, right? We bought it as is. And that's, hey, that's on us, right? It was cheaper because we didn't have to do an inspection, we got what we got. And it had a guest house. And we went to get a $10 permit to vent the sewer line. And now I have a gutted guest house that's down to the studs. My contractor's poof in the wind, and because we're trying to bring it up to code, right? I think I wish I could have just come to the city and said, hey, do I not have to follow the code because I want my friends to be able to stay here, can I just not follow the code? I have to follow the code. No matter how much it costs, and the fact that I haven't had a place for my friends to stay since we gutted it in February. And I'm committed to following the codes. I think everyone should. And if I'd known that I could just say it's okay, right? Because I have a lot more money in my checking account right now.
How do you, doesn't the city council, don't they change codes?
Yeah.
If they need to? If it's proven to be like, an old code?
We do, and as on city council, I wish I could give all the examples of codes that we worked on and changed. So examples would be, we had a business, and when I was on the city council before, we had a business and residents that came and they wanted to be able to drive. I wish I knew the name of them. Some people call them side-by-sides, where they're the little tiny vehicles that kind of look like golf carts only. They have license plates and all that. They were against code to drive them on our streets. And there was a local business that said we need them for our business. There were people, particularly RV campers, that hauled them behind for their little vehicle that wanted to use them. And as a council, we studied that and we changed the code. We actually didn't change it correctly all the way, and people, through public comment, someone came and said, hey, you left a loophole and we have to change it again. But we listened to what people wanted and we changed the code. So that is the role of council, is to look at codes and change codes.
And zoning?
So, I don't know how that works, because I think that mainly comes first from the planning commission, and then from the planning commission would recommend it to the council. So, and I think they might have an opening on the planning commission right now. Did they fill it? Yeah, that is, you talk about an intense and very important commission to be on in our city, is the planning commission. They tackle a lot of issues and dive into all the things, and they bring recommendations to the council.
Healthcare in Ocean Shores. How far do you think the city should be involved in facilitating or assisting some sort of healthcare facility to come into town?
So I'm fortunate because every day, 5 days a week, I drive into Aberdeen. So I've got a close launching point that if something's wrong with me, that I can get to, I can drive to Elma or try to get into somewhere into Elma or into Aberdeen for healthcare. But from, Ocean Shores up the coast, there is an absence of healthcare. I think trying to define what kind of healthcare we want would be important. So currently what we have is I think 2 citizen groups that are both, I think at least 2, maybe there's more, that are trying to figure out how to bring healthcare here. And I think our city does play a role, not in, let's take the budget and let's build a healthcare facility and let the city hire a physician. I don't think that's the role the city has, but I think our city has a role in coming to the table to help figure out, is it Ocean Shores group that gets together and the city's part of that, and let's look for some grants, or what can we do? Or is it even all the way up the coast? Do we involve the Cornwall Nation or Seabrook in our quest for I would say close health care for people? And I think that as we continue to grow, we're a city of 7,000. And if you go up the coast, as we continue to grow, the need is there. So people don't have to drive. I go to Elma. That's where I'm currently going.
But not everybody can.
And not everybody can. And I think that the benefit of that would be is if it was here, we would have more people want to come and move here, and more people that would stay here longer. So often when I see houses that are for sale and people move in and then they stay just a short period of time, I often wonder, did something happen that's medical and they ended up having to move closer? And that makes me sad. Because it's a great place to live and people should be able to live for as long as they can. I'm staying until I move into Green Lake.
Back to Jane.
Jane has a question.
If I had popsicle sticks with all the kids' names, I'd be like, Allison, do you have a question?
I don't think you gave a definitive answer on the sidewalks as far as how you would go about funding at this point in time now.
It's hard because I'm not currently on the city council, so I don't have a current working, I should pick, it's Catherine, I think, back there. She's been picking Catherine's brain. But I think that some of what progress has been made has been like safe routes to school, I think it's going to take accessing some grants that are available, whether it's safe routes to school or looking at any kind of federal or state grants, because our budget's not going to be able to pay for it all itself. And I also think that this new approach, I would call it a new approach our city has, because in the past it felt like it was all or nothing. If we can't do everything, then we're not going to do anything at all. And this kind of new approach our city is taking on projects is something is better than nothing. And if we can get part of something done, that builds community confidence that it can happen and get some energy around it so that we can continue to move forward. Because wouldn't it be nice if the Dunes Trail started at Damon and then went all the way down to the jetty, right? But instead of saying, well, we can't do it all, so we're not going to do it, they started with part of it. Or we have one crosswalk. Instead of saying, well, we can't do all of them, so let's not do any at all, we started with one, and people can go, yay, there's a crosswalk. So I think it's that we need to do what we can and start the project, and then that gains support with the community and confidence that it can happen, which sometimes is lacking with not just here, but with people's distrust with government sometimes in general, that nothing gets done, and could start moving forward.
Can you expand a little bit on your idea of environmental principles?
Environmental, I think I want to call and phone friend David Lynn. I love how passionate. I don't know if anybody knows David Lynn, but he ran on a platform of the environment and is really I think an untapped resource in our community with people like you that worked on the Shoreline Master Plan and did that. I think that we need to look at our wildlife. We need to look at erosion, our waterways, all those things in our environment. And this may not be a popular thing to say, but I'm not going to use the word climate change. But it is hot. It's hotter here now. And I'm only on year 10, but the summers are getting hotter. That's impacting our quality of life here. And I think we need to decide, are we going to use herbicides? Are we going to do that or not? Or if we are, what's the level we're willing to do that? Are we going to make decisions when we build things that we're purchasing, and do we spend more money to purchase environmentally friendly materials, or are we going to do this? Are we going to allow Lisa to bring a giant plastic water bottle to a meeting and talk about environmental principles? Or when I was initially on the city council, we were even talking about plastic bags, right? That we should eliminate plastic, and I never thought that would happen. That that little plastic bags would go, and look, it happened. So I think that we can tap the people in our area that are well more versed than me in the environment here, and then what do we agree that we need to keep in our quality environment, and then when we make decisions, whether it's building projects or whether it's how we whether it's herbicide that we're using or treating the waterways, are we adhering to those environmental principles when we make those decisions? And it's hard. It's hard. Who here has ever been, grew up on a farm or knows a farmer? Any farmers? Okay. So, even, I'm, again, 6 generations of farmers. I've had to watch farming change because they can't farm the way they used to, or it's just going to be the Dust Bowl again in the Midwest, that they've had to they spend money differently on the farm and have to make different decisions, or they're not going to have anything to farm in the years to come. And I think that touches us here, is if we continue to just do what we're doing, will we still have a place that people want to come and visit? Are we still going to have any deer at all wandering around, or any wildlife at all, if we don't make other decisions? Go ahead.
Do you think that the council has a goal, or maybe I should say that people just get it? Do you envision the possibility of landscaping principles?
Wow, they talked about that the other night, and it's like fireworks, pow, pow, right? Red rock.
But is that open the idea that landscaping, that it's okay? You can call covering an entire 7,000 square foot lot with crushed gravel as landscape.
You've been talking to my husband, Doug.
And that's something.
That's how Doug likes to landscape, is with rock. So, the discussion at the council, I don't remember if you were at the city council meeting on Monday night, they were just trying to basically just work on a simple lot clearing change where it had to do with having to have a bond in order to get occupancy if your landscaping wasn't already done on the property that you had built on. And even that, they still got sent back to work on it some more because stuff about landscaping came up. I don't think I know enough about what the codes around that, or what that would be. Lisa Scott started chiming in because of her experience in Aberdeen. And the landscaping here is different, right? One of the beautiful things about living at Ocean Shores is the ecosystems, even on this 6x2 place, are so different. What I could do landscaping when I live down by the jetty is completely different than what will live and grow where I live on Lake Menard versus people that live up closer to Duck Lake and in the forested areas. So it would be really interesting to see what people would say landscaping is, just because it's so different, I think, where you live in our city. If you've ever done the garden tour here, that to me was that really brought it home to me about just how different the ecosystems were right here, from the garden that was along the ocean. That garden is completely different than the garden that was over by the bay. So I don't know enough about. I know I just talked for 3 minutes and I don't even know what I'm talking about. But what we do though on our property just doesn't impact you, right? What you're doing on your property impacts the environment around you. So how do you balance your right as a landowner to have what you want in your yard versus what are you doing on that might be impacting the fresh waterways or other things like that. I just talked and I didn't answer.
you're gonna have to deal with a budget of $39 million or more on a budget. Are you gonna be able to use logic and valid premises, or will you get swayed by the emotions of many people that don't think things out? And if you do make a decision, you need to be able to explain it, because you seem to be very fluent when you're speaking. So you should be able to explain your decisions, I hope.
I hope I can explain my decisions. I think it's because I've had to explain myself to children that I get better at explaining myself. The thing about a budget is that it's a team budget, right? And it takes months to develop. And it starts with our city office, right? The mayor and his office looking at budget projections and what do they think is coming in, and they think they know how much money there's going to be, and they come with us like, they go to the different departments, and departments come up with their budgets, and then we get kind of like a sample one, and then it's just months of haggling back and forth. But it's a team process to decide. And I think that we're still swayed by individual people, because you can't think of everything in that process. There are still people that are going to say, hey, did you think about this? And everyone's going to go, well, that was a great idea. I wish we would have thought about that, and able to kind of to make those changes and explain it. Unfortunately, there's not enough money to do everything that we want. So I don't know. I guess I'm used to trying to explain to people what we spend money on and what we can't spend money on as part of what I've had to do in my job.
But in your job, you were able to use logic, right?
I did try to use logic. Sometimes the sometimes it didn't seem logical coming from up there, and then I had to try to explain it in a logical way, which is why I ended up finding a new job. But I try to explain it logically. I once, during the .com boom, anyone that was working in education during when the bust happened, and we all saw just horrible, and it happened here. I realized it happened city budget wise too. The impacts here happened in education as well, and having to go through a process where at that point I had 4 assistant principals, and my boss told me I had to cut one, and I had to decide which assistant principal to cut. Just let him know which one it was. So, and then cut 10% of my staff. And I've had to go through those kind of processes and explain it to people. And at the end of that process, those people were still my friends. I still cared about them. We helped people that lost their jobs find their jobs. So I was able to do it in a respectful and kind way, even though it was super hard.
Thank you.
I had a longtime teacher decide to retire early so that another teacher in her department could keep his job, because that was the kind of environment we had, and taking care of each other. So she said, I'll just retire. And so she goes, I can survive.
So for you, that was a logical thing to do, right?
It was logical. I think it was a logical thing to do, because he kept his job, and he's a great teacher.
All right, Jane, we're going to let you ask the last question again.
It's not going to be fireworks.
Not fireworks, please.
It might make fireworks. I don't think it'll make fireworks, but it's something that's become very concerning to me. And lately in this campaign, it seems like there's almost a block of candidates that you're involved with. There's you, there's Bob, there's Richard, there's John, and who's one of the guys? Allison. Sorry, Allison. It's okay, raise your hand. And there seems to be this block, and this concerns me, because I believe our council needs diversity also. I don't believe in block campaigning. I don't believe in block voting. I believe in voting for the best candidate. And it's not just with what I'm mentioning with the block, but I'm constantly hearing this side, or you're on that side, or you're on that side. I'm on nobody's side. I'm on whoever's the best candidate. And I'm just wondering, do you have somebody you would try and stop this, I'm on this side, I'm on that side, and try and bring the community back together?
So it would be hypocritical of me to say, yes, I'm going to do that when I have that magnet for my car that has the block of people, right? So, but I think that we are never going to move forward until we can let go of that. And I don't know if I know the best path forward other than whoever gets elected. And whether it's me or whether it's Susan, whether it's Richard or whether it's PJ, that when they take office, they're going to have to be able to let go of whatever was said during the campaign or happened during their campaign and really make it about our city and everybody. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who people voted for. They're still a valued person and they still need to be listened to. I think that if Susan had been able to be here today, and hopefully when she's at the Lions Club, I think that you'll probably find that we have way more in common than we have differences. That our mission of making this place a better place for people to live is the same mission.
It's just concerning to me because, as you said, you have all the names, and that's a block. And to me, that kind of leads into that appearance of this side versus that side. And it's very concerning because block voting, any of that, it's never been looked upon kindly because it's kind of like come in, take over. Where when you have a council, you need diversity. You do not need everybody getting along. They're not getting along. Agree. You need the different opinions. You need the different ideas, and you need all of that. So that's just a concern of mine, having the whole block. I think we all just need to be campaigning as individuals.
And I think that the block of candidates occurs wherever we drive around town in people's yards. You see, the same kind of thing occurring. I think that one of the things about me is that I can support, and again, I'm going to tell you again, I have that magnet for my car, and that's what my signs in my yard look like. That I support Richard in his campaign, but I don't always agree with Richard. And because I support him in his campaign, and I currently plan to vote for Richard. If we were both on the city council, that doesn't mean that I'm always going to agree with Richard. I don't think it's okay to say, well, since I voted for you, I'm going to agree with you. That just what you said, that different ideas and the difference is what makes us a better place. Because if everybody was the same, then wouldn't that be boring, right? And change happens when different ideas are brought to the table. That's how change happens. And when I think of change for the better. And it takes different people and different ideas to do that.
I just think a lot of the division would go away if we wouldn't do these blocks and these groups and everything like that. We have little cliques here and there. I think if we would all just be individuals.
I'd like to be in your clique.
I don't have a clique. This is the clique. I do preach what I talk about. This is the clique.
And I saw how you can use a drill too. I was super jealous of that when you were working on. I don't know if you guys know that. Well, Richard here worked I think he worked every day on the skate park. Jane was working her butt off when the time I went up and carried a few pieces of things around and then left. So you're not good with the drill, Jane.
Okay, Lisa, do you have any last words for this group?
I would only say that I think the sun doesn't set until 7:30, so you're still going to have about 3 hours of beautiful sunlight left. I just want you to know that I would love if you voted for me. I would love that. But even if you don't, that's okay. I hope you stay involved in our city because your voices matter. And if I'm elected, I listen to everybody. I may not agree with you, but I'm still going to listen, and I'm going to look for those kernels of what I need to know, and I hope that I can let people know when I don't agree with them, let them know in a respectful way, or explain. I think that Andy was using the word logic, explain why it didn't happen that way, and I think I was able to do that when I was last on the city council, and I think that, again, is because that's what I do for my job. Explain logic to sometimes illogical people. Because when you're passionate about something, when you're passionate, sometimes the emotions run high, right? And people are passionate about their kids, right? So in a school setting, that's, those are their babies, they're super passionate. But it's really no different with our city, because when people come, they're passionate about their water, right? They're passionate about what that neighbor is doing across the street from them that needs to stop. And you have to be able to listen for the message and not be impacted by how the message is delivered, because people have things to say and we'll learn from that. And that is what I bring, is I can listen and learn.
I want to thank everybody for giving up your Saturday to come here today. I want to thank Lisa for coming and speaking to us. Next Saturday at 12:30, we will have both candidates for position 4 will be here, Allison and Caroline. And then at 3 o'clock, PJ has declined to come, but Richard Wills will be here next Saturday. So I encourage you to come back next Saturday, and we'll have cookies and coffee and sit around and talk to the candidates.